What if the fate of an entire war rested on a single battle where the odds seemed insurmountable? Could a vastly outnumbered and outgunned force change the course of history with nothing but courage, strategy, and a stroke of luck? This is the story of the Battle of Midway, where the tides of World War II turned in just 3 days. The Battle of Midway, fought between June 4 and June 7, 1942, was a pivotal moment in World War II, shifting the balance of power in the Pacific theater. It came just 6 months after Japan's attack on Pearl Harbor, which had left the United States Navy reeling. At the time, the Imperial Japanese Navy appeared unstoppable, having seized key territories across the Pacific and Indian Oceans. With their sights set on Midway Atoll, a small but strategically crucial island, the Japanese sought to extend their control and destroy the remaining American naval forces. Unbeknownst to them, the Americans had a vital advantage: they had broken Japan's naval codes. The Japanese plan, known as Operation MI, aimed to lure the U.S. Pacific Fleet into a trap. They intended to strike Midway and force the American carriers to respond, allowing Japan to destroy them with a superior force. Their fleet consisted of 4 fleet carriers: Akagi, Kaga, Soryu, and Hiryu, which had been instrumental in earlier victories. This impressive armada was led by Admiral Isoroku Yamamoto, who hoped a decisive victory would crush American resistance. However, the U.S. had deciphered key elements of Japan's strategy thanks to their cryptanalysis team, known as Station HYPO, based in Hawaii. By breaking the Japanese JN-25 code, the Americans learned that Midway was the target, allowing them to prepare a counterstrike. Admiral Chester W. Nimitz, the commander of the U.S. Pacific Fleet, seized the opportunity to turn the tide of the war. Despite being outnumbered, he devised a bold plan to ambush the Japanese fleet. The U.S. forces included 3 aircraft carriers, Enterprise, Hornet, and the hastily repaired Yorktown, and a collection of cruisers, destroyers, and submarines. Nimitz positioned his carriers northeast of Midway, lying in wait for the Japanese fleet. Meanwhile, the tiny garrison on Midway prepared to defend the island with everything they had, including B-17 bombers, torpedo planes, and fighter aircraft. On the morning of June 4, the battle began. Japanese aircraft launched a massive strike on Midway, bombing its airstrips and defenses. Though the attack caused significant damage, it failed to neutralize the island completely. During the assault, American planes from Midway launched counterattacks against the Japanese fleet, but they were largely ineffective, with many bombers shot down by Japanese fighters or anti-aircraft fire. The Japanese believed their plan was unfolding perfectly, unaware that American carriers were lurking nearby. As the Japanese carriers rearmed and refueled their planes for a second strike on Midway, American carrier-based aircraft were already en route. These included dive bombers and torpedo planes from the Enterprise, Hornet, and Yorktown. The first American attacks, carried out by torpedo squadrons, were disastrous. Outdated and slow, the torpedo planes were decimated by Japanese Zero fighters. Out of 41 torpedo bombers, only a handful returned, and their attacks failed to score any hits. Despite this, their bravery played a crucial role by drawing Japanese fighters away from higher altitudes. Moments later, American dive bombers arrived. Exploiting the absence of Japanese fighter cover and the chaos aboard the carriers as they scrambled to rearm their planes, the dive bombers struck with devastating precision. Within minutes, 3 Japanese carriers, Akagi, Kaga, and Soryu, were engulfed in flames. Their decks, loaded with fuel and munitions, turned into infernos, dooming the ships and their crews. The 4th carrier, Hiryu, managed to launch a counterattack that severely damaged the USS Yorktown. However, Hiryu's success was short-lived. Later that day, she too was located and destroyed by American dive bombers. By nightfall on June 4, the Japanese carrier force, the heart of their naval aviation, was shattered. The battle continued over the next 2 days as Japanese forces attempted to retreat. American forces pursued them, sinking additional ships, including the heavy cruiser Mikuma. By June 7, the fighting had ended. The Japanese had lost 4 carriers, a heavy cruiser, nearly 250 aircraft, and over 3,000 men, including many of their most experienced pilots. In contrast, the Americans lost 1 carrier, the Yorktown, along with a destroyer, 145 aircraft, and around 300 men. The disparity in losses was staggering and marked a critical turning point in the war. The significance of the Battle of Midway cannot be overstated. It ended Japanese expansion in the Pacific and placed them on the defensive for the remainder of the war. More importantly, it demonstrated the value of intelligence, strategy, and perseverance against overwhelming odds. The loss of 4 carriers and their experienced aircrews crippled Japan's ability to wage offensive naval warfare, while the U.S. began to rebuild its fleet and gain momentum. The battle also highlighted the bravery and sacrifice of the men who fought, particularly the torpedo plane crews who faced near-certain death to pave the way for victory. Midway's legacy endures as one of the most dramatic and consequential battles in military history. It was not merely a clash of ships and planes but a testament to the resilience and ingenuity of the human spirit in the face of adversity. For the United States, it was a moment of triumph, a beacon of hope during a dark time, and a turning point that set the stage for ultimate victory in the Pacific.